People always ask me if there's anything I actually miss about the prison experience. And honestly, there is one thing that might surprise you. Welcome back to Spice's Diary, where every bite feeds the soul and every story heals the heart. And today I'm going to share something that might seem a little crazy to you, something that might sound a little nuts. In some ways, I kind of miss prison. No, I don't miss the fact that he's in prison. Absolutely not. I don't miss the fact that I have to go there every weekend to see him. I don't miss the fact that I have to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars to talk to him like normal people do for free. But I miss the scheduled routineness that prison provided. We have seemed to have lost since he's been home. I guess what I'm saying is, like, when he was locked up, I knew what times I would have him every day, whether it was the phone call or it was the visits that were allotted to us, or even just the random letters that I would get throughout the week, or the multiple emails that I could get throughout the day. But I knew that there was going to always be a dedicated time for us to communicate. And most of the time was during the week over the phone. Yeah, we didn't play about them. And in those hour blocks of time, I would stop everything and just focus on me and him and our time. I only had the one phone, so I'd be talking on that phone, so it wasn't like I was necessarily playing games or checking emails. It was a very dedicated time. And clearly, it was something we looked forward to because that was all we had in forms of communication. It was phone, email, letters via mail, or phone calls. And then periodically, we started to receive our EFVs, which were called also extended family visits, and you guys might call them conjugal visits, also known as the boom. But we started receiving those in 2012. And when I say I miss prison, I think that is probably one of the things I miss. One of the only things I miss. It was a time where it was very inconvenient. So let me not glorify it or make it seem like it was amazing. But compared to the other times we had with each other, it was such a treat to be able to live like normal people. We started ours in 2012. And you can go and watch a podcast because I think we told the story of how we got ours. It wasn't the traditional way. But typically in Washington State, you have to be married or the immediate family member to receive these extended family visits, also known as EFVs. And we were in there as a married couple. And so we started receiving ours. August 31st was our first one in 2012. And that was a very special day for a lot of different reasons. But that was the first time I had been alone with him for over 14 years by then, almost 14 years. And I remember we were making our list for weeks and weeks and months of what we were going to pack and eat and the recipes I was going to make and what movies we were going to buy to watch. And we were just planning and it was like the first time in so long that we had something to look forward to. And I remember when we got there, I had, you have to buy everything brand new, including all of your spices and seasonings. So you don't just get, at least then, when I first was going, I think they've eased up now, but back then you had to bring in your own salt and seasoning and pepper. All of your meat had to be in the sealed package, all of your cheese. Nothing could be cut up except if it was hard vegetables because they didn't provide you with any knives in there, but everything had to be in its original package. Then you have to bring the food in the can, if it was canned food, and bring a container to transfer the food over because they had to watch you take it from one can over and put it into the container that is a clear container that they could see through and allow you to bring it into the visit. And I remember that day, there was a lady who had brought everything already taken out of the cans, and they almost sent her away with nothing. They almost made her take everything back to the car. And she was pleading, like, it's my first time, I didn't know. And they finally let her go through. But it was such a very rigorous process of buying all the items, preparing them in a way, packing them in a way that was acceptable. If you list out all of the things you go through, because then you also have to get pat searched. They put you through a metal detector. They take you into a private room. You got to shake out your bra. You got to lift your hair up, look under your tongue, squat and cough, but not naked. Just have to open your legs and squat. Oh, because that's better. It's just very invasive. It's always very invasive, especially for someone who didn't do anything. So, girl, what do you miss? And it wouldn't seem like it was worth it until you finally get through, because you're doing all of those things and following all of the step-by-step protocol so that you can get through to be able to get into the trailer. That's the goal. And many people don't make it. And if they do, their visits are delayed a lot of times because they might have to go back to the store or take things back to their car or just get their visit canceled altogether because they're bringing in things that they're not allowed. And the other crazy thing is that every facility has a different requirement list or exception list or allowable list that they let you bring in. So it's not across the board, which makes it so frustrating and hard because you're not realizing that you have to read up and study when it's like, this is Department of Corrections. Why is it not the same for every place? Like, if y'all operated the same, why can't we bring in the same thing? Because that would just be too easy. Well, anyway, the goal is to get past the check-in so that you can get to your person. And I remember the very first time, our very first trailer, we had gotten one of the bigger trailers because they always range in size based on if there's how many people are in your party. For some reason, we got one of the bigger ones. There was a hallway down to the bedroom and it also had 2 bathrooms. And I was loading all the things in. And normally we get in first and then the incarcerated individual, your loved one, comes in after. And I was just waiting for him and I was kind of just standing outside and I heard the gate clink. And so I opened the door and I was like, Pookie, we made it. And then I saw him walking towards me. And like at the time, Pookie was like probably 300 pounds, full muscle. Like he was a walking ox walking towards me. And I remember my stomach kind of dropped like, oh my God, I'm about to be alone with this man by myself. I was excited, but also scared to death. So I ran back inside like, girl, just get it together. Like, pull it together. It's fine. And then as soon as I turn around, he's walking through the door, which he completely filled up the whole door frame. And I just was like, oh my God, he's here. And that started our first trailer, our first EFV. Of course, he ran up to me and we ran into each other's arms and were hugging and kissing. And you know, everything went from there. But I think the reason I miss it so much is because every time I was at EFV, it was an escape for me. It was always a mini staycation vacation. No phones were allowed in. Nobody knew where I was. I mean, my family knew that I was there, but they didn't have any way to contact me. And I never provided that because I did not want them to contact me. I wanted them to have to like figure it out because it was a way for me to escape and kind of run away. And there were definitely some periods in my life where that is all I wanted to do was run away. I remember when both of my grandparents really got ill and I was the main caregiver for them, both of them. And my family members were just not very helpful on a lot of things. And so it was like, I got to say on EFV weekends, like, I'm not going to be available from Friday to Sunday. Put all of the requirements on my uncles and my cousins and everybody else to figure it out. And it was just like my time to just regroup, you know? And then I remember other times in my life when I was not good with my other side of the family because they really broke my trust and I felt like neglected and abandoned me in probably the worst way I've ever been abandoned. And I think their abandonment was almost worse than my dad. But child, I'll get more into that one later. I still felt like I had to be around them because they're my family. And it was like, I need people because I'm out here by myself. Not realizing like, even with them right next to you, girl, you're still out here by yourself because they're not looking out for you. But I remember when I'd go to EFV, it was like I could run into Pookie's arms. And that was the one time in that whole period since the last time I was able to do it that I was so safe. And sometimes that was as long as 4 to 5 months. That I'd feel like someone actually cares about me. And that I could rest and not have to be like resting with conditions or resting based off of what y'all need me to do or showing up for people who never show up for me. Because the whole time he was inside, I was still facing trauma, but it wasn't coming from prison. It was coming from everybody who was supposed to love me. At least I thought they were supposed to. Like, it was just a time where I could just be. And I remember the first day, I'd always like, after me and him would have our little meet and greet and catch up, I just remember I would sleep and sleep and sleep. And there'd be some visits where I would just cry and cry and cry because he was my safe place. He was the space that I could go and nobody could touch me. Nobody could be mean to me. Nobody could make me feel less than. It was just my space. And now he's home and I love that he's home, but the world is caught up to us. Life is lifing and it's a lot that goes on out here all the time. So it's not as easy to have such dedicated one-on-one time together and to have my own, what is it called? My own sanctuary or my own place of just refuge. And that's a lot of times what that was for me. So in those times are when I can say that I really do miss it. Because I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to leave him because I knew what I was going back home to. Just more sadness and depression and loneliness and neglect, abandonment. The list could go on and on and on. Yeah, I realized that I miss prison because prison signified peace and me being away and some type of calm. And the difference is like I said, he still provides all of that for me. But I compete now. I compete with my time. I compete with his time. I compete with our jobs. I compete with our household chores. Like, we just compete with a whole lot of different elements that we didn't have before. And both of us just don't always get that quiet, dedicated, one-on-one time that we used to have so naturally and easily and often. So it's not that it isn't good. There's just certain levels and pieces of stability that's crazy to say it, but that prison provided that our current life, it doesn't always do. The other reason I miss prison is because I've been really working on healing and working on myself. And so part of it is I think back on some of the time that we were incarcerated and how sad and miserable I was and who was around me when I was sad and miserable, because I'm trying to make sure that I'm surrounding myself with people who really do genuinely love me and care about me and want to see good for me and are rooting for me whether I'm in the room or not. And it's not based on what I can do for them or if they like how I'm living my life or what this person said about me or what they agree with this or whatever the case. I just want to be loved for me. I want to be loved for who I am and what I do. And I want my heart to be seen. And I want to be cared for the same way I care for people. And sometimes, it's crazy to say it, but that's why I miss prison.